To understand how you got into real estate and energy, we have to look backward. Your resume is fascinating. You were a project manager handling strategic partnerships at LinkedIn,
Hmm.
arguably the pinnacle of safe, comfortable corporate tech. What's the exact moment, the catalyst, where you realized you had to leave that perfectly manicured ecosystem to return to the wild west of real estate and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it begs an additional color there. I was so fortunate to be brought into LinkedIn by my then boss, who was essentially also creating her own role there. And for me, I was in corporate consulting for years before I entered into LinkedIn's workforce. But even then, my context was still, I was still entering from the mindset of consultant. So even though I was on payroll, um, the project and the way that I was orienting towards their whole ecosystem was still as an independent consultant
Yeah.
working for my client to affect the projects that we were working on. And what I mean by that is we had to perform. I didn't feel safe, as you said, in the sense that I wasn't there just to collect a paycheck, or I didn't like have even all the accoutrement of working in kind of big tech because I was remote. I was working out of Portland, out of my own office,
Hmm.
and I had an office from being a consultant. So,
Right.
I had that professional space to go into every day and had that separation from my home. But I'd have to fly into San Francisco to go to go to the campus in Silicon Valley, and I didn't even have a badge the whole time that I was there. Like I
Oh,
just wasn't
really?
even there enough. I got like a temporary badge whenever I went on campus. So for me, it didn't feel safe in that sense. It felt
Okay.
still very much like I was working independently. But what I got to do and who I got to expose to and the workflows and the people, all of that was of course there. And so I really got to cut my teeth on another level, working inside of corporate, sort of as an internal consultant, if you will,
So you were you,
held
were-
to
you
that
so
same
you were a
standard.
1099. You weren't a W-2
I was a
there.
W-2
Oh, you
because that's what
were.
they required. Yeah,
Okay.
which served me well during COVID, by the way, when everyone got, no one hired any consultants during
Right, and
COVID
all
and
the
everyone got
layoffs
tanked.
that were
So I was
happening.
able to collect unemployment from the income that I made on that W-2, but otherwise I wouldn't have as a
Classic tech
1099.
layoffs.
Yeah,
Nothing new.
yeah.
But wouldn't you? But I still would think that like I still would think that working at LinkedIn, and you said you were a W-2, right? As a consultant, is still safer than entrepreneurship. For the entrepreneurs listening, even myself, right? It's really scary being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I tell every entrepreneur that I talk to, there's been times when I've had to go get W-2 work to make my cash flow work. And that's just a necessary part of, I think, any growing organization. You're not going to hit it out of the park every time.
Right.
Best laid plans, as they say, you can almost be assured that the cash flow or the pro forma or the business strategy is gonna alter and change over time, and you really need to be open to that feedback loop and change. And fortunately, because I was working in cultures of innovation as my consultant career, I was already well versed at how to not only create those feedback loops and to kind of distinguish the signal from the noise, but also to have kind of a thick skin, if you will,
Hmm.
when the market came back and said, "Yeah, that's not going to work."
What a lot of people are doing right now is also fractional work, right? It's like a newer it's a newer sort of term, I feel like,
Hmm.
right? Where you like you said, you still were open to working at other places as a consultant. You probably did some things here and there, and that's how you supplement when
Well, I had
you're
other clients even when I was
right.
at LinkedIn. That's another example where really that was that was project based work, and the opportunity to be a multi-dimensional professional that isn't kind of screwed into one template or one role has always been my prerogative, and that's ultimately where I got to the point where my boss wanted me to basically do like a 2 or 3 hour session with her boss, who was essentially the head of the department there, the budget holder. And I knew that she was positioning to get me hired more full time. And call it self sabotage, I totally blanked on that meeting. I didn't even realize until an hour in that I had missed half of it. And I was so embarrassed that I missed half of it. I didn't even contact my boss or sign on to be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I didn't even apologize that day
You just
because
avoided it
I
completely.
just avoided it completely.
Avoiding humiliation.
And part of it was like, that's who I am. Like I did not in any way want to be kind of sucked in by the golden handcuffs, if you will, of like big tech,
Yeah.
because I knew that for my own mental like fulfillment and stability, I needed to have the freedoms that I had worked so hard at that point in my career to create for myself. I mean, I had been in business for myself for 10 years at that point, or maybe a little less, 8 years. And, it wasn't my intention to try and carve out for myself a cushy LinkedIn job. I've always wanted to be in the trenches, like with entrepreneurs, like working out the cutting edge of some of these markets. And so, that's what was happening in solar when I joined, which is why I got really excited by it. It was messy, it was dirty. There were people doing all sorts of weird, sometimes borderline unethical things. And for me, it was about holding the standard of what ethical business could look like, what serving the client with the best interests of the client in mind could look like. And, ultimately, scoreboard is I'm still here.
If you enjoyed this video and want to watch more just like it, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire episode, click right here.